Howdy again. It's tubalcain. Yes, I'm going to answer some of your questions by popular demand, and I've got about 100 questions. I'll probably only get through about 25 or so. Do not send me any more questions, and I must chastise you. I wanted succinct questions, one sentence, not entire paragraphs. Some of you, gave me a whole page, and I appreciate that, but it's hard to answer questions. Also, some of you cheated by putting 2 or 3 questions, in the same comment. So anyway, this might be fun, I hope, and if it's successful, 10,000 views or more, I may do it again. I don't know. It was more work than I thought because I ran out of battery, and now I'm doing it for the second time. So this will be very polished and perfect now because I had a chance to rehearse it. All right. Question 1 is, and I won't read all of the questions here. This was from Steve Fleming. Would it be possible to copy plans such as your various projects in the description below? And I've done that in the past. It's difficult for me to handle drawings. I know that you can't read them when they're on the screen if you're looking at your telephone or something like that. And in the past I've had some people that have helped me with that and hosted these, but I don't know how long they stick with it, but that's how I'm dealing with it. I don't want to make it any more complicated for myself than it already is. Once I do a video, I'm done. I don't want to go back and support it, so to speak. I'm just like your all of the products you buy. I don't want to support it. I'm going to give you what they call non-service, like the telephone company. All right. Norm Fryer says, my question is, what do you think will happen with your machine tools and all that when you crappie off? Well, thanks a lot, Norm. Well, all right. Some of it I'm going to give to my grandson, Jordan. The others don't seem to care 2 hoots. My own children don't care 2 hoots about it. I've already sold quite a few tools and even machines in the last year, and my hit and misses and all of that. So a lot of that's gone, and I'm glad of it, although I do have a little bit of seller's remorse, but I have such massive quantities of stuff yet. And I have sold on eBay. By the way, don't ask me what my eBay name is. I don't even remember offhand. I haven't been selling lately. I dread it. It's a big job. And then you get taxed on it on top of it, even though it's already your. Don't get me started on the tax man. Don't even go there. All right. So I told my wife, call up after I die. You need 1 telephone call. Bradley Auction Barn. That's it. All right. Perry Churchill, he might be a relative to Winston, I don't know, but he's in Newfoundland. He says, I am not a machinist, but love your channel. I have cheap Chinese lathe to practice on, and watching your channel has helped me a lot. But my question is on milling machines, for instance, what is the best type of milling machine, a vertical or a horizontal? Hands down, a vertical. You're not going to find that many horizontals anyway, in the smaller sizes. You just won't. I do have that nice closing, and I intend to do a video series on that. I should say a course. I'm going to have a course on that eventually when I finish this one. By the way, I'm working on this. I got 10 chapters done. It'll be out in March. How to run a South Bend shaper that will also work for your Atlas and your Rockwell and your Amco and your Logan and your, I don't know, there's others. All the small ones, it's kind of similar. Oh, here's a good one. What happened to Sarah, your fan and Stoker from Colorado? Isn't she sending you any gifts or pictures anymore? Well, and I think her name is Sarah, and I've been pining over her ever since. But do you remember some of the neat gifts that she gave me? And then I included them in my What Is It series. There's one of them right there. Do you remember that? If you're out there, Sarah, I miss you. Contact me. The Price brothers asked me, how did you start your home shop? Well, I was married for 3 months. I lived in a different house then. I saw an ad in the paper. That's when we had newspapers with classified ads. And it said, there's 3 machines for sale for $300. There was a Delta regular arm saw, which is long gone. There's a little Delta 4-inch jointer that's still sitting about 10 feet from me under the stairs. And there was a vacuum cleaner. So I had to go down to Peru National Bank and borrow $300. You might have thought I was asking for $10,000 the way they drilled me over. They were so worried about how they're going to get their money back. You know, it was quite a bad experience. And my dad had already taught me to dislike banks and distrust them. And boy, that put me over the top, and that's 51 years ago. So anyway, see, I get on a tangent, don't I? So, well, my dad's family lost 2 farms, you know, back in the 20s after Grandpa died. And so there was a great dislike for the banks, even though the banks just wanted their money, but, you know, they took the land and the way you made a living and all of that, so leaves a bad taste in your mouth, doesn't it? So then, from then on, after I had those 3 machines, I just continued to buy and acquire things. It was a real slow acquisition because we didn't have garage sales. Well, I didn't go to garage sales or auctions or any of that, and that's eventually where I got it, virtually everything. Okay, Ben Butler says, do you plan to have another meet and greet? This will be succinct. Depends on when the dictator allows it. Yes, you heard it, and I believe it. Do you? All right. And then he said, no, this is another guy now. I don't see the name on this. Oh, Jim Stickup. He's asked about 3 questions. I'm just going to answer one. He says, how do you keep the shop so clean? I didn't know that I kept it all that clean, but I'm very anally retentive about chips on the floor. I remember my dad when I was a kid. He was a shop teacher. I would love to look at the bottom of his leather shoes, which were shiny with thousands of chips. And I vowed that it wasn't going to happen in my house, so often I sweep even as the machine is taking a cut. And I use a magnet, and I just try to get up those nasty chips. I use a vacuum cleaner. I never use an air hose. I'm constantly straightening up the bench and putting tools away. And, you know, I like a clean dashboard on the car. I'm just fussy that way. Silly, probably, but. And I waste a lot of time because of that. You know, there was one other question there. I think I'll answer it while I'm at it. He asked about humidity. I run my dehumidifier at all times down here in the basement shop. Matter of fact, it's right over here. I can almost touch it. I had to buy a new one recently, but I run that all the time, or you're going to get rust. Down in Texas and other places, it's just terrible. In Florida, and they said, can you use a dehumidifier in a garage? I suppose you can if you keep the garage closed all the time. An air conditioner will do the same thing. Probably cost more to run it, but so be it. Well, then Rob from Texas says, I enjoyed your 3D printing and the projects. I was wondering what your thoughts are about the process. Do you still have the printer? Do you still use it? Do you intend to use it more in the future? Well, I am still totally blown away and amazed by the process that you can build something up in 3 dimensions from nothing. That does not seem to affect younger people. They're so used to technology. However, I've lost interest in it. The 3D printer's over there, 12 feet away. I haven't used it in a long time. Mine is not that high quality, you know, so it's kind of difficult to use. prints stick to the bed. I think I solved that. You know, I had all kinds of, elephant footing is a big problem. I thought it was the panacea for pattern making, and to some extent it is. It's just an amazing process where you can enlarge and you can reduce and you can modify. And I don't like the layering, you know, the roughness using PLA, but I probably won't use it much anymore because people don't want to see that. But I'm blown away by the technology. I'm still amazed at a printer, you know, that printed this out. You know, when I had to type my thesis by hand, you know, and then if you made a mistake, you had to start over because they didn't allow erasures. You know, talk about a nightmare. All right. Now, Mike Cozier said, as an old-time manual machinist, I watch all your videos looking for tips. I never cast anything except lead bullets. I just recently acquired a 12-inch lathe from the 30s with all the tools. Okay, finally, here's the question. He needs a steady rest. Do I plan on making a steady rest in a project? No, I already got one. And although it probably would be a pretty good project to make a steady rest. It wouldn't be all that hard. I would probably make it I would fabricate it rather than, you know, try to cast it, because you got to make a pattern, and that's what takes a lot of time. And getting back to the 3D printer, since I do not know how to use Confusion 360, I have to rely on other people, and I've worn some of those people out. This is my favorite question so far, and I hope I don't start bawling while I read this, but Brian Hostak from up in Colfax, Wisconsin, I know where that is, said this. He's retired, he's 77 years old, my age, and he was a teacher, industrial arts, manual arts, and he was wondering what my degrees were in and where I got them. He says he got his first degree from Stout State University in Menominee, and he says, have you ever heard of it? Well, let me back up. I got both my degrees from Illinois State in Bloomington Normal, Illinois, back in the mid-60s. Wonderful education. I don't know how it could have been any better for teaching industrial arts. You know, I had professors and teachers that were world class, but so Brian said, did you ever hear of Stout State College? Did I ever hear of it? My dad graduated from Stout. It was called Stout Institute then. My mother graduated from there in home economics. In fact, that is how they met. My dad grew up near Menominee on the farm till I told her they got booted out. And then they came into town and lived in abject poverty, but he wanted to be a dentist. This is back in the mid-20s. He wanted to be a dentist after his dad died, but you know, there was no money. But he was able to go to Stout Institute because there it was, a half mile from his house. He could walk, and that's how he became a shop teacher. So, and Stout Institute was the source for shop teachers for many years in the Midwest. They had a wonderful program, and I still go there and visit. Menominee, I was just in Menominee recently. I love that big tower there at Stout. The clock tower is so awesome. So, and then he's from Colfax. Do I know where Colfax? Yes. My two cousins were raised by the Matthews, some wonderful people in Colfax, after their mother, my aunt, was killed by lightning standing by the screen door in North Menominee. So that was quite a question. Bill Whitley said that he likes the videos. I think I'll try not to read that, but he's having eyesight problems, lighting problems, all things that I have addressed, and he said he can't seem to hit the mark when he's center punching and he's got layout lines and all of that. I've showed you in videos how to do that, and I tell you, it's difficult as you get older, but you got to get tons of light and use all those magnifiers I talk about. But if you use, Bill, if you use a height gauge, like I've shown you, and scribe the lines ever so deeply so that they're virtually a furrow, and then do as I showed you in the video, following the furrow with your punch until click, you feel it fall into the perpendicular furrow, and then you're on line. You can do that with the lights off, and it is incredibly accurate, so try that method. Okay, Arfin Jones says, suppose you had Adam Booth's clearance issue on Keith Rucker's Stoker engine. How would you solve that problem? Well, did you watch that video? I watched it last week. And Abom's working on his huge shaper, and he's trying to work inside of a casting that's like a box. And he can't get clearance. No matter what he does, the tooling or the machine or something, you know, hits. And he's stumped on it, at least as of this writing right here. So what would I do? I don't know what I'd do. I'll tell you what I would do, actually. I am avoiding any difficult nightmare projects like that. I just won't do them because it's incredibly frustrating, and it's humiliating too, because I don't, even though I'm an expert, I'm not an expert, but I mean, as Adam is, you know, he's stumped. There's just no good way to do it. Now, maybe he'll solve the problem. How they did that 100 years ago, I don't know. It was amazing. But I tend to want to avoid frustration and keep the anger down and the blood pressure down. So, all right. I didn't answer that at all, but that is my answer to Arfin Jones. And then the next one here, Steve, he's in Oregon. He says, what program do you use when you edit your videos? How long does it take to make the average video? I was wondering because I'd like to start making some video. All right. First of all, I use Powerdirector 13 for editing. I do not enjoy editing. It's a miserable job for me. Part of it's because my computer is so old and slow, and it constantly crashes on me, and so it takes a long time. I don't like that at all. But that's a good program to use. I probably only use 20% of its capabilities. That's a very complicated program. You don't need to know all of it. So get started on that, you know, making videos. You'll love it. It takes a long time to make a video. It depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I spend a couple days on one video. This one that I'm doing right now, actually it's taken 2 days because I told I lost all the footage. So I'm doing it again. So it's taking a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought I could just sit down and bam, 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 you know. But it took me a long time to read through over 100 emails. Some of you I answered. I told you that some of them I didn't want to answer, like, you know, how do I change the belts on my Sheldon lathe? I can't seem to get the spindle. I don't want to answer those. I can't. Dear Mr. Pete, my Ford LTD stalls at the stop sign. What should I do? I don't know. So don't ask me questions like that. Remember, I'm not any smarter than you. Matter of fact, you're probably a heck of a lot smarter than what I am. So Bob says he was wondering about the Starrett tool oil that I have like in the background sometimes. He says, what's so special about that, and why do you use that all the time? I'll tell you what's special. I like the label. That's the only thing special about it. I don't even know what kind of oil it is. Maybe it's 3-in-1 put in a Starrett can. But if it says Starrett, I love it. All right, Bob. Here's a tough one. Gudi Nielsen, he's in Denmark. He's a Scandinavian. I don't know if they talk that way, but you know, my dad talked with tremendous Norwegian accent and could not pronounce some words properly because he couldn't speak English until he was about 7, so they had to hold him back in school. The little country school wouldn't even take him until he could speak English. So Goody says that he has two identical chucks. They're Pratt Bernards, I think are made in Britain, but they don't have any jaws. So how can I make the jaws? How would you? I wouldn't make the jaws. I would throw the chucks away, Goody. I would summarily pitch them. I would have them recycled. I would use them as a boat anchor. Don't frustrate yourself trying to make a precision part that needs to be hardened and has incredibly complex geometry. No, don't try it. And you'll never find ones to fit. You just won't. Remember, I gave away a whole box of chuck jaws on that last machine that I sold. One of the machines, might have been the South Bend, there was a bunch of unidentified jaws. No. And I don't mean to discourage you at all, but don't even try it. Stefan says, you have a huge and wide knowledge about measuring tools. Well, that's questionable. He said, when will you show how to make adjustable parallels? Well, I never even thought about it, and I have several sets of them, so I don't really have a need to. It might be a fairly interesting project to tackle. I'd have to even examine one to see how they're built. I wouldn't attempt to make the small ones. I'll let Starrett do that, or Brown and Sharp, but I have no particular interest in doing that right now, Stefan. John Driggins, no, that's John Driggers from Timbuktu. He said he has a shaper like this. He's looking forward to that series that I'm making, so hope to get that out, like I say, March or April or later. He says, yeah, he gave me two questions. I'll just answer one. Give me a history of your career. Well, I don't know. I got my degree and my master's in '67, got a job here in town teaching shop, taught there my whole career until '98, and then continued to work part-time teaching welding and for 12 years, 10 or 12 years, and then I also snuck a year working at Caterpillar down in Pontiac, Illinois, a very repetitive, miserable job, did not like at all. I'm not used to repetition. I like variety. Some people said, just put your mind in neutral, as they smoked their third pack of cigarettes that day. A lot of them are dead now because of that. That's already 20 years ago. And so I have a boring life. I'm married to the same woman for 52 years, had the same job basically my whole life. So other than some of the adventures that I've gone on and talked about, you know, I don't have an amazing career by any means. My career really ended in '88 when they sold the machine shop from under me, and it broke my heart. Took me years and years to recover from that. Mel Arndt said, why don't you do a series of projects where you give a lecture and then the actual demonstrations or production of the project, you know, kind of like you would have done it at school. Well, at school, really, they had to be very, very short demonstrations, perhaps 8 to 10 minutes, and then put the kids to work, because that was their attention span. Plus, they wanted to get to work, and you only had about 50 or 55 minutes, so you had to go, you know, really fast, and then allow some time for cleanup and all of that. So that's how my teaching was structured all of those years. Kids would not tolerate a 1 hour demonstration, or I should say lecture. I couldn't tolerate a 1 hour lecture, and probably a lot of you can't either. So that's a good idea, and I call that related information, and I usually put it under extra credit. So that's what I've been doing lately. So that format seems to work fairly well. I don't think I'm going to change it. This is the last question before I go into what I did yesterday. I was able to salvage about 6 or 8 from yesterday. So this is the last one where you'll see me sitting right here, and the next one I'll be over at the bench, I believe. So Arnold Baker, also from Timbuktu. A lot of people have written to me from Timbuktu. Have you noticed that? Well, he says that I'm doing most of my demonstrations, of course, on Atlas and South Bend and that. And he said, what about these people that are using Harbor Freight lathes and Chinese machines and, you know, all the various imports? He said, can you do some videos on those? Well, I really can't because I don't have any of those machines. If I did, maybe I would, and some of those are pretty decent machines. I don't see how they are a whole lot different than what I'm doing, let's say, on the Atlas lathe. He did mention that he has a milling machine that does not have a knee, so I assume he means the so-called mill drill. So you can't raise the table, you have to lower the head, and you just have to work around that the best you can, and sometimes that head, I know, swings a little bit on you. I have a friend that had one of those. It was from Menards. He liked it pretty well, but he used it mainly as a drill press, and ultimately when I had 2 Bridgeports, I sold him one of the Bridgeports. And I helped him move it and set it up, but he didn't wire it for 5 or more years and has used it only once since then. So I'm halfway mad at him. But he said he had to have it. And then he sold that mill drill after a while. Although the mill drill was a very good machine to use as a drill press because you could slow it way down, and you had a table that, you know, you could adjust. So I would think that one of those would be swell. Swell? I haven't used that word in 20 years. I think that it would be swell to use as a drill press because it's got a more taper, and you used to be able to get them real cheap. I don't know how much they are now. Nothing's cheap anymore. You know, the price has gone up on absolutely everything except for writing paper, and that remains stationary. Rim shot. All right. After that corny joke that my dad told all the time, and I was 40 years old before I got it. And I suspect that some of you did not get it. And it doesn't matter. All right, I'm going to cut over to the other bench, and that concludes this part. Thanks for writing. Don't send in any more questions. Well, due to my incompetence, I ran out of battery and lost the last 6 or 8 questions, so I have to do them over again. That's punishment for being incompetent. Penance, is that the word? Okay, Vincent of Baggett Corner on YouTube, I guess that's his channel, said, do you enjoy making and editing your videos as much as you enjoy making the projects? And if you didn't make videos, would you make as many projects? That's a succinct question. That's really the kind of questions I wanted. Bam. So, all right. Yes, I enjoy making the videos. I already said I don't enjoy the editing. Although you could be very creative. There's probably more room for creativity, if you have creativity, in the editing. But I can't do that. I can't even make the thumbnails, you know, that tell you how to make these special thumbnails, which really are clickbait. I object to some of those greatly. Not so much in Machine Shop here, but on other channels. There's some total clickbait, and I will not watch those. But yes, I very much enjoy making the videos. It's a lot harder to make a project and videotape it at the same time. It takes 2, 3, 4 times as long, and should you ruin a part, let's say it's a little engine or something, halfway through, and it's a casting, you know, you're really out of luck, and you just have to throw the whole thing away. So that's really discouraging. I would make longer and more difficult projects if I wasn't videoing for myself like I used to, because I stopped really making models quite a while ago, and I'm strictly making videos now in my shop. That's about all my shop is used for. So I do not enjoy making a video if I'm at a museum or something like that. I think I'm going to stop doing that because they aren't they aren't watched anyway, and it takes the fun out of being at an event, looking at it through a viewfinder. So I probably will discontinue that. But otherwise, yes, I love making the videos. Dan Elder from Timbuktu gave me a long, I'm going to read the whole thing. You have been doing these metal shop educational videos for many years, longer than anyone else, that's true. Here's something to ponder. With 250,000 subscribers and so many views of us, so many viewing, you have taught far more concepts to a great number of people compared to teaching in the classroom since you retired. The internet is a powerful source to spread malice too, I guess, he says, but it's also an even more powerful way to spread good. You've had a front row seat. Thank you for the efforts. Yeah, you know, by the way, I'm almost at 250,000. Help me push over the edge. I don't really know how important that is, but I'm actually at 248,000 as of January 2020. And I have thought about that very often. And like I say, I answered this question a few minutes ago, but years ago, teaching high school, I might be teaching how to grind a lathe tool, and I'm hunched over a grinder and about 3 people can actually see what I'm doing. The rest are screwing off in the background or don't care. So if I would have had a videotape machine and a screen back then, that would have been a fabulous teaching tool, but we didn't have that technology then. But I had often thought that, let's say I was grinding the tool or some project like that, and I was standing on the pitcher's mound at Yankee Field with 50,000 people watching, and that's really what it's like when, you know, for Avon or somebody that has a wide, large audience, that he's got this tremendous group, you know, viewing him, and it's really amazing. Mine's usually more like 10,000, so I'd be at Wrigley Field on a bad day. Bad day, but the power of this is tremendous. You're right, and the close-ups that you can get and all kinds of things like that, and going back and editing and trying to make it better. But we never even had such a thing. You know, so I went into one of the home ec rooms when I was teaching, and these girls had these women, teachers, had a large mirror over them. And the kids could look at the mirror, and it was tilted to see how she was preparing this dish. I thought, why? You know, we never had anything like that in the shop class, or never thought about it, or it wasn't offered in the catalogs. I was unaware of it, but there were a lot of good teaching tools, but we were always inhibited by the budget as well. So that was a good question. Jason Lewis asked a rather long question here. He makes parts in his small machine shop at his house, and custom parts for old cars and things like that. And he talks about a surface grinder, a Brown and Sharp, and he needs a rack. Some of these machines were moved back and forth by rack and pinion, and he needs to make one. He's asking, is it possible to make one on the shaper? I have watched some videos on that. I hope to do that in this video course that I'm making on the shaper, but I have to learn how to do it myself. But I would suggest to somebody like him to go to McMaster Car and buy a length of rack material, probably available, and go that route rather than tormenting yourself with a lot of failure when you're actually trying to get a job done and making money. There's a big difference between making money and just having fun in your shop, I believe. Well, I don't know if I answered that, Jason, but I got to move on here. So this one's way too long to answer. And it's from, oh shoot, it's like a whole page, from John Wallace, and he worked for NASA in California. He invited me out there if I ever come out, and if COVID's ever over. But I don't think I'd ever go to San Francisco again with all the homeless. They get a lot of bad press, it's like Seattle. And I was in Seattle, so like, are you serious that you run a city like this, like in Seattle? I hope I don't hurt people's feelings. But if you live in Seattle, you know, you got to be shocked. I live near Chicago, and I'm shocked at the murder up there. They don't cover it too often in the news, but if the murder, it's mainly bad men shooting bad men. But it happens every week, 10, 15 deaths and about 50 shootings. Some innocent people shot as well. Anyway, boy, I got sidetracked on that. I forgot what the question was, John. So he said that he worked for, he worked for NASA. And he worked in the wind tunnels. They had a lot of these wind tunnels. They were all set up with the same machinery to do these amazing jobs. And so he had a great career there. And that's a lot more high-tech, than what I ever did. And that's why I'm surprised that some of you guys that are masters of the trade would watch my pathetic little videos where I'm showing how to make a center punch. And he said that his mom was from Streator here, my hometown, and his cousin is a Tombaugh, which is there's a Tombaugh roofing here that's pretty famous for doing rubberized flat roofs. By the way, we always call the flat roof a California roof, because a flat roof is pretty much comes with a written guarantee to leak. So, well, I don't know what your question was, John, but I waxed on it a little bit, I guess. Well, this is question 23, and this will be the last one, from Andrew West. Let's see, he's got a simple question. Do metalworking companies in this country still make quality tools, assuming that they're still made in America, as they did 40 years ago? Well, I think all of the hand tool companies are gone, other than maybe Channel Lock, I think is still in Pennsylvania or someplace like that, Champion Armament Company. All of the other ones, Crescent and Vice Grips, they're all overseas. And probably some of them are inferior, I'm not really sure. But if you're talking about cutting tools, I think some of the American cutting tools, the companies that are still left, are probably better than ever, because they got the technology. I don't use a whole lot of carbide, but any of the American cutting tools that I have, of course a lot of mine are older. I have a lot of new old stock tools here, so I think they're every bit as good. Well, that's 23 questions. There's probably a lot more. I will do more if anybody watches this. Anybody still with me? But, if it isn't at least 10,000 views, I will not go any farther with it. I did answer some of you personally because I thought that the video questions did not fit in with this format. So, and some of those I can't answer, they're too long, and I don't have the time. So, but thank you for watching and following my channel. So I wonder if you like this format, which you might call like a fireside chat. But originally I wanted very short, succinct, well, it's the same thing. I wanted succinct questions that I could give a short answer on and not, babble on and on and on and get sidetracked, as it is my wont to do. Well, it's Mr. Pete. So long for now. See you next time.